Chung, your go-to for all things marketing, mindset, and manifestation. I grew my online business from 0 to beyond 6 figures in 8 months. My purpose is to empower women to step into the highest, most aligned versions of themselves. If you are ready to take charge of your life, learn how to design a wildly successful business, and leave limiting beliefs behind, you've come to the right place. You will learn the actionable tips and step-by-step strategies on money, manifestation, and social media. It's time to step into your role as boss, to raise your vibration and tap into your unlimited potential today. Welcome to the Social Reset Podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a really exciting episode for us planned today, all about manifestation, ADHD, being neurodiverse, and being a woman of color. Now, you might be wondering how all these three things even pair together, but honestly, they've been on my mind for quite a while now. When I first started my business, I hustled really hard. There are some things that I don't feel like I regret doing because it really did build the momentum, especially in the beginning when I was figuring everything out. But I was definitely grinding and hustling harder on my body and my nervous system and my energy than I needed to. And when I learned about manifestation, law of attraction, abundance mindset, that is really when I started getting into the flow and the groove of my business and making money and attracting abundance in the way that I meant to. But I was also learning from so many neurotypical people, not just about manifestation, but about business and marketing and sales. And if you're a neurodiverse person, if you have ADHD, you're on the spectrum of that on any level, it can be really difficult to A, follow rules, B, be organized or strategic or plan ahead or do things consistently every single day in a certain way that you were taught, right? When you are neurodiverse, you are typically pretty non-conforming. You like to do things your own way with your own flexibility, with your own ideas and energy. And so I started to learn more about my neurodiversity. I started to realize that I was ADHD and I masked it, which is a really, really common specifically in women, people who are socialized as women growing up, because we're taught to please others all around us all the time in school. And so when I started to embrace that, coupled with knowing that I'm a daughter of immigrants, of two Asian parents from China, from Canton and from Hong Kong, who view success and the American dream and having a stable job and, just showing up in life in a certain way, especially since we've got a whole lineage of scarcity around money, not ever making money. I'm the first woman entrepreneur in my bloodline. So there were a lot of barriers that came up when it came to manifesting my desires, manifesting my dream life that showed up really differently than someone who was a non-person of color who had privilege in other areas that I just did not growing up. So I really wanted to create this triad essentially of understanding manifestation as a neurodivergent woman and woman of color, and how I've been able to navigate it and how you can navigate it as well. And my goal for this masterclass that I'm calling a soiree, because that sounds fun and fancy, this Thursday, August 4th, is so that you can walk away, even if you're not a woman of color, even if you aren't sure whether or not you have ADHD, I would just invite you to come and to just bask in what can be a different way of understanding and reframing manifestation. because so much of manifestation is taught by neurotypical leaders and coaches and mentors, I think it would be really interesting for you to get curious about what it would be like to learn from someone who is neurodiverse and doesn't do things on a daily basis or has any type of set routines or anything like that, and has still been able to manage well over $500,000 in her business in under 2 years. So I would love to see you there. There are more, there's more details about that in the show notes. There's a link where you literally just put in your name and your email and you get the Zoom link and confirmation to be in the class next Thursday. I made it super, super simple for you to join, and I would really love to see you there. So I want to talk a little bit more about my story of neurodivergence and also being a woman of color that has been navigating the manifestation world and the spiritual community, and some things that I have pinpointed as I don't really love the word blocks or roadblocks, so I'm just going to say it's created some friction, it's created some resistance in my learning to manifest, in my understanding of manifestation, and even the law of oneness as it relates to racial trauma and oppression and supremacy culture, right? Hierarchy, colonialism, patriarchy, capitalism, industrialism, all of these things affect disproportionately communities of color and other minority communities such as the LGBTQ community, the disabled communities that struggle with chronic illness, etc. Right? There are so many different types of people and different people who approach and view and identify and walk in this world in different ways. So the very first thing that I really want to touch on is that ADHD it does not mean that there's something wrong with you. I don't even really like identifying it as a disorder because it clearly states that there's something wrong, something is out of order. Of course, if you have ADHD and the word disorder, and I'll still use it from time to time just to kind of explain, what it is and breaking down the terminology and etc. But if that resonates with you, by all means, right, please use it. This is just my experience, is that I think it's a superpower, right? And if you're listening to this and you have maybe recently been diagnosed with ADHD, or you're coming to realize, you know what, I think I do have ADHD, and you're starting to link back to different things in your childhood and maybe you're going to get tested or whatever it is, I would invite you to start looking at your neurodivergence as a superpower that you were born with and that you can befriend and partner. I think that so many of us view it as a disorder, and it's been called a disorder because most of the world is neurotypical, right? Most of the world does not have an ADHD brain. And so systems, school curriculums, the workplace, etc., has all been created by neurotypical people for neurotypical people. So anyone who stands outside of that is seen as disordered. So it doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. It just means that there are a lot of people who are neurotypical, and those are the people that are labeling, identifying, building these things around us. It's similar to when somebody is navigating the world as someone who is disabled, say that they don't have legs, and most of the population has legs and expects other people to also have legs. That disabled person getting in and out of buildings or walkways or events or, different places, there has to be someone who thinks about others in a way that is different than the way that their body works. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the person who doesn't have legs. It just means that the world was built for people who have two legs. And I really want to highlight this because I think that so much of neurodiversity can come with a lot of shame, right? It could come with us shaming ourselves for feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this wrong. Or thinking that we need to show up as a neurotypical person, the way a neurotypical person plans out their week or their schedule or their to-do list or all of these things. And then when it ends up taking more energy or we feel like we can't do it or it's harder for us to do it, we then blame ourselves and shame ourselves and go, well, my mom does it like this. Why can't I? I should be able to do this. Or my partner does it this way and my partner's been bugging me to, schedule my calendar like this. Why can't I do it? Is there something wrong with me? What is wrong with me? I should be able to do this. I need to do this. This is the quote unquote professional or best way to do it. Or I read this in a book and I tried it and for some reason it's not working. So I need to force myself to work in this way. So I just want you to just think about that energy because I'm sure in some way or another, we have, as neurodiverse people, attempted to show up as a neurotypical person, right? Whether it is the way that your schedule looks, the way that you time block your calendar, the way that you do things in your lifestyle, right? There are so many things that categorize you as a neurodiverse person. Like for me personally, almost everything is like extra energy. I never respond to my texts immediately. Even closing caps, I'm staring at a water bottle and another bottle in front of me that both don't have lids on them. I'm looking at my kitchen and most of the cabinets are left open. Right now, my house and this table that I'm recording on is cluttered. Everything is cluttered on either side of me and underneath me. There are just certain things that are more challenging. Obviously not impossible. I can go and clear this all off right now, but it would take a lot more energy for me than it would for a neurotypical person, right? And so I'm not saying I leave it like this all of the time. I have created, which I'll talk about this in the masterclass, more so about manifestation, not so much like how I, keep my house clean. But I have, of course, created like different ways to work around this and different ways to make it fun and exciting and even loop in my daughter with me to, keep the house, clean because I do like having a clean space. I do think that it does make me feel good. But there are just things that are more of a challenge. And these are just small examples, right? Things like test taking, being in school with a really rigid schedule or program hasn't ever really worked for me. There are just a lot of things within my life and now as a business owner that are very different. And I've learned to not just tolerate it and accept it, but actually learn to love it. I have learned to identify my ADHD as a superpower. I've been telling myself and creating intentional thoughts. Remember, your thoughts create your reality. So I've been telling myself intentional thoughts like nobody has a brain like me. My brain is $1 million brain. I have all of these ideas that swarm in, and that gets to be why I'm a genius, why I am a superpower, why I am one of the top manifestation business coaches out there, right? And these are just thoughts and mantras that I continue to tell myself because they create emotions of joy and of peace and of gratitude and of surrender and of partnering with my neurodiversity, and then allow me to create really great work in the world because I've learned to befriend it rather than shame it and blame myself and just be in this place where I don't end up doing anything or I feel really badly because I feel like I should be doing things a certain way. So just some of the things that I don't do as a business owner. I do not have a to-do list. I do not schedule things out. I especially don't schedule things out for a long time. If I do have like a 6-month one-on-one coaching program and a meeting with them biweekly, I do schedule that, but I also have my virtual assistant do it. I've also used automations and different tech tools to make it really easy. So for example, for scheduling, I use Calendly. And in the past, I would actually ask my clients to just schedule their own sessions, especially if we were meeting weekly, etc. We would just set a date and then they would just go in and schedule it on their own. There's so many ways that you can do this. There's no one right way. I also don't plan out things like launches. Like I don't have an entire, all of my content is written out. All of my emails on my Instagram posts are pre-written and pre-scheduled, and they just go out on certain days and times. Like I do everything in the moment. Every email you get from me, typically around 11 at night or midnight, I write it in the moment. I don't force myself to stick to consistent posting either. So when you see Instagram posts from me, they're pretty much written and created in the moment and then just posted, because I just trust that my energy is going to come back, and I don't need to sit there and batch create, because that takes a lot of energy from me. And honestly, I just don't like it. It's just stuff that I feel like I should do, or in the past I felt like I should have done. But then when I did it, I didn't like it. Right? And I want to remind you that, especially when it does come down to business and life as well, there aren't really that many things that you absolutely have to do, right? You don't have to have a business, not a business. Well, yeah, I mean, you guess really don't have to have a business if you don't want to. You don't have to have a website, an email list, posts go out every day, even like social media. Like it's not something that you have to have in your business, even though I do think it's an amazing tool that's built my business. But you can pick and choose is what I'm trying to get at here, is that your energy is sacred. The way you do things is sacred, and you decide how that looks, and it could be wildly different than your best friend or someone else that that runs a business. So that's mainly the neurodiversity portion of this manifestation. I feel like has been dwindled down to daily journaling practices, meditation, visualization, mantras that you repeat every morning. And while those things are helpful and there's nothing wrong with them, and you can manifest powerfully that way, there are also infinite other ways to manifest, especially if you don't like sticking to a consistent schedule, such as daily meditation or daily journaling. Daily journaling has never worked for someone like me because I have an ADHD brain and I just can't find anything that I want to do on a daily basis every single day, other than a couple of things like feeding myself and going to sleep and etc., right? Waking up in the morning, being alive. Other than that, my day-to-day differs very drastically sometimes. And so sticking to a daily routine, or at least in the past when I've attempted to stick to a daily routine, it has just created shame and blame and guilt of like, oh, why can't I do this? I know I'm supposed to do this. Why can't I get this right? What is wrong with me? It's just created a lot of shame around my own brain. And now I just meditate when I want to, when I feel a lot of anxiety, or sometimes I'll have a streak going where I meditate for a few days in a row or a couple times out of the week, right? But I don't stick to this rigid schedule because that just doesn't work for my ADHD brain. The more that I try to fit into a schedule, the more my brain just wants to rebel out of it instead. So instead, what's really helped is creating time blocked areas throughout my day or throughout the week or throughout, certain chunks of time where I know I'm setting this time aside to pick and choose from a couple of things. Like, for example, I don't have a strict morning routine that I do every single morning, but I choose from a couple of things that I love to do in the mornings, such as spend time with my bunny, read a book, check and respond to social media messages and comments from you all, which always makes me happy. Maybe I go out for a walk. Maybe I go for a hike, right? These aren't all things that I do every single morning, but I can pick and choose to do one depending on how I feel. And most of the time, I like just being able to sleep in and stay in bed a little bit longer and not have to wake up to the sound of an alarm. So for you, it's just figuring out what that looks like within your lifestyle and what works best for you. Also, when it comes to motivation and incentive as a person with ADHD, it isn't always the money necessarily. It's often an emotion that you feel at the end of it. So I try to focus on like, what do I want to feel at the end of my mornings? What do I want to feel, within my like the time block that I have in the morning, and then I go and do something that goes to create that emotion, right? Like for me, money isn't even a really big motivator. I mean, it is. It for sure is, but it's not the main one a lot of the days, especially with my ADHD brain. I look for things like joy when the comment section pops off on a free masterclass, and that's what I think of when I'm like, oh yeah, I want to create this masterclass and I can't wait for like the chat section to pop off with all of my amazing people. Or I visualize like opening up the Zoom room and seeing all of your excited faces getting ready for the masterclass. That brings me joy. That brings me pleasure. That brings me appreciation, gratitude, unconditional love, right, for my community. And that is what might push me much more than, a dollar sign specifically, or other things that, or just the act of like completion, right? So for ADHD brains, it's a lot of like emotion driven, emotion motivated tasks. And that's why I don't have a to-do list, is because I don't really manage or end up doing all the things I need to do within a day. And this doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that for people who are neurodiverse, the amount of time it would take someone who is neurotypical, say it takes like 5 minutes, it would take a neurodiverse person much longer, it would take them much longer to get the same task done. Or maybe it doesn't take much longer. Maybe it just takes more energy. And so if you find yourself very tired as a neurodiverse person, I would see where you can simplify things, delegate things, maybe things that you don't want to do, to somebody that can either help you out, or somebody like a friend or someone that you hire onto your team. If you are a business owner, or if you have the financial capabilities and resources to do so, maybe you're not even a business owner, but you would love just a personal assistant or someone to help you out around the house that can just lighten the load for you and make things easier. Okay, so now I quickly want to talk about how being a woman of color relates to manifestation. So when we think about manifestation and the spiritual world, what do you think of? For me, I picture and think of, because I've seen and because of what I've been exposed to and what is pretty predominant, are white blonde women with blue eyes, and they wear all white, and they, talk in a certain way, they show up in a certain way, they do things a certain way. They are, they typically come from families that have been able to support them. And that's kind of the traditional way of manifestation is, they talk about visualization, affirmations, mantras, a lot of things that we have come to understand in the manifestation and spiritual world and community is, repeating things a certain few times, writing things down, manifestation journaling, and then you manifest your desires. And I think what gets left out of that, if you are a person of color, specifically women, because most of my community are women of color, when you are a woman of color, especially if you're a daughter of immigrants, there is so much that your parents have imposed upon you through lineages, generations of fear and scarcity, especially if there is war, racial trauma, oppression in your bloodline. Epigenetics shows us that we carry up to six generations of DNA in our blood. So up to 6 generations, your grandma's grandma, carrying all of that oppression. And for me, I am the first woman entrepreneur. I am the first woman in my bloodline, as far as I know, that is making her own money in her own way. So the way that I manifest my reality as a daughter of immigrants, as a first daughter, right? My parents were born in Hong Kong and Canton, and I was born here in the States after they got married, settled down in the Bay Area in California. And so for me, the way that I approach things like scarcity, money, success, right? I have a certain lens that I've already created from my frame of reference as being a daughter of immigrants. The way that they understand the American dream, the way that I have a great grandfather, couple of greats I have forgotten by now. By the time my parents have told me the story, it's been a while. But one of my great grandfathers worked on the San Francisco railroads and forbid any of my family to return to America because of the extreme racism that he experienced while working on the railroads. And my dad decided to come anyway to pursue the American dream, which at that time, I don't really believe in it in the way that it is sold, because we know, if you live in America, it's very driven by these supremacy systems of white supremacy and capitalism and the patriarchy. And so the way that I understand it is, it's very different than a non-person of color that hasn't had those same resistance and barriers to education, to financial abundance. Even the words that we use within spirituality can be very different, right? It can be different and difficult to understand, especially if you are, like I mentioned, a daughter of immigrants, and maybe you still have to send money back home to China, the Philippines, India, Africa, wherever your lineage is from. There may still be elders or people within your family that are looking to you to support them, especially if you live in America and they live in a different country. Sometimes they look at you as their only hope, right? And sometimes the way that we've been taught about success and graduating college and climbing the corporate ladder and how it's been embedded in us with fear tactics is because our parents didn't know any other way. How could they have? How could they have expected that there is an entire digital age that we're living in now where you can create an online business, make six figures and beyond, and learn for free from podcasts like this one and social media content, and be able to build a business, build a fortune, and build an empire that way? How could they have known when the only thing that they ever experienced was hustle and sacrifice and grueling hard work and never seeing their kids, right? And so as daughters of immigrants, as people of color, as women of color, especially because we are socialized in a way where we are essentially trained to overthink everything we do, the way that we are accepted, the way that we are, the way we navigate relationships, the way that we show up in different settings, people pleasing, codependency, etc., relying on the people around us, right? There is so much that we have been ingrained from childhood. And so I want to say that if you are a woman of color and you are listening to this podcast, whether you're neurodiverse or not, just this piece of being a woman of color or a, child of immigrants, a child of, family where your cultural heritage, your traditions are so embedded that if you try to do something different, like say set boundaries or leave your 9-to-5 to pursue a coaching career, it can be very scary and startling to your parents. And that can come off as a very opinionated responses or criticism because they don't understand what you're doing. They think that you're putting your future at risk and maybe even sometimes their future at risk. So I want to remind you that you are not alone. And I think that sometimes manifestation can feel a little bit more challenging because you are a person of color and because you've experienced oppression, and oppression is in your bloodline in the way that non-people of color do not experience it. At least not to that level in which you have or your generations before you have. And so I want to remind you, even though there are some very real circumstantial barriers that are very, very valid and are very, they're just very real, It doesn't mean that it has to hold you back. In any case, this can be your superpower. And I want you to start looking for reasons, even if this sounds crazy, that this is your superpower, that your neurodivergence is your superpower, that you being a child of immigrants, being an entrepreneur, the first entrepreneur in your bloodline is a super, like that's amazing. And if you're not even there yet and you're like, you know what? I do plan to start a business one day. I do plan to join Business Activation Academy one day and start and grow my business and make money as a coach. But you're not there yet. That's okay. Just the thought, just the desire is there for a reason. You are here for a reason. And so I just want to remind you that even though there are very real barriers within manifestation, and in understanding these terms, it doesn't mean that you are that it's impossible for you. It just means that your journey is going to look a little bit different, and you are going to pave the way for people that are going to come after you and that are going to create a legacy like you are creating a legacy. And that is really, really, really powerful stuff. And you are breaking generational curses while recognizing generational gifts. And I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. I see you as a portal. You are a portal that connects and heals the families and generations that have come before you. And you are a portal that connects you to future generations. Whether or not you have children, you are influencing the masses that end up coming after you. And you here right now in the present, you were born into this lifetime, into the universe for this very reason, in order to manifest your magic, share your magic and your medicine with your people in the way you understand it. That is your superpower. That is your secret sauce, that no one sees the world like you do, that no one has had the experiences that you've had. And the more you use your voice and share your story and show up and do the work you're meant to do in this world, the more people will heal, the people that have come before you and the people that will come after you. Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope to see you in my Subversive Manifestation Masterclass next Thursday, August 4th at 11:11 Pacific time. The link to join is in the show notes below, so just click the episode, scroll down, you'll have a link to register. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review and a rating, and let me know how you are enjoying the podcast so far. This allows more people to be able to access and just reach this podcast, be able to change and transform their lives as well. I will see you in the masterclass on Thursday, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at tiffanychung.co. I truly appreciate interacting with every one of you. Catch you all on the next one.